In the 1st century before our era, Rome was at the height of its power. It controlled vast territories stretching from the Atlantic to Mesopotamia. The Roman Republic was wealthy, influential, and arrogant. But behind this facade of prosperity lay a dark side. Rome's economic strength rested on the labor of millions of slaves. They were forced to work in quarries, fields, homes, and gladiatorial arenas. A slave was not a person in the eyes of the law, they were property. Every Roman military campaign ended with the capture of new slaves. The more Rome expanded, the more it relied on slave labor. Wealthy patricians built palaces. Even in gladiator schools like the Ludus in Capua, slaves were trained to kill each other for entertainment. But one day, a spark of rebellion lit in the heart of a slave and nearly burned Rome to the ground. The story of Spartacus is wrapped in legend, but at its core is a real man. He was born in Thrace, in what is now Bulgaria. He may have been a soldier, perhaps even an officer, before being captured and sold into slavery. That's how he ended up in a gladiator school in Capua. These schools were death factories training slaves to fight and die. Spartacus endured brutal training. He was taught to kill, to survive, to obey, but he never accepted his fate. He was intelligent, strong, and charismatic. Among the gladiators, he quickly became an informal leader. He studied the guards' routines, supply routes, and weaknesses. He knew escape was possible if it was unexpected. He dreamed of breaking the chains and reclaiming freedom. Even if the chance was small, it was worth more than a lifetime in bondage. To Rome, he was just another slave, but already, he was becoming a symbol of defiance. He believed that one person might be weak, but together, they were powerful. He saw others who would fight not for glory, but for freedom. That's what set him. In 73 BC, something unexpected happened at the gladiator school in Capua. Spartacus and 70 other slaves rose up. They had no weapons but kitchen knives and makeshift tools. Their resolve and surprise gave them the edge. They killed the guards, seized the arsenal, and escaped. It shocked Rome. A fortified, organized school had fallen to its own slaves. The fugitives hid on the slopes of Vesuvius, launching raids. Other slaves flocked to them from farms, villas, and mines. The slave army grew daily. Spartacus and his comrades Crassus and Enemaus formed fighting units. They used surprise tactics, knew the terrain, and struck fast. The first Roman force sent against them was defeated. The Senate was alarmed. The revolt did not fade, it grew. Spartacus not only won battles he inspired. Slaves no longer needed forcing to fight, they marched willingly, believing in freedom. Within months, Spartacus' army numbered tens of thousands. These were not just slaves, but soldiers hardened by suffering and burning with vengeance. They set up a command center, destroyed garrisons, raided estates, and freed prisoners. Spartacus showed strategic genius, avoided large battles, trapped enemies, and used mountains and forests as shields. He was a guerrilla commander with the scale of a general. Rome was stunned. Experienced commanders lost. The Senate panicked. The economy faltered. Fear spread. Spartacus headed for the Alps, aiming to take his people beyond the empire's reach. But dissent grew. Some wanted not escape, but conquest. Spartacus hesitated. Victory was unlikely, but hope remained. The Spartacus uprising had long ceased to be a local revolt. The slave army controlled large parts of southern Italy. Its ranks included not only gladiators, but also former shepherds, miners, farmers, and even deserters from the military. Even free poor people, disillusioned with Roman rule, joined the cause. Spartacus allowed looting only from Roman landowners. He tried to instill discipline and turn the mob into a real army. It was a grassroots revolution, spontaneous, yet powerful. He understood that chaos could destroy them faster than Roman legions. Military units were formed, with standards and signals. The fighters wore captured Roman armor and gear. Spartacus established forges to produce weapons for the growing army. Some local towns even began recognizing the authority of the rebels. Rumors spread across Italy about a king of slaves who had defeated Rome. In the Senate, voices emerged suggesting they negotiate peace instead of continuing the war. But Spartacus did not seek power, he sought justice. Each of his victories inspired thousands. Yet that growth carried risk. The army was becoming too large and increasingly difficult to manage. The Romans were used to fighting by the rules. Armies lined up in open battlefields. But Spartacus rewrote the rules. He launched night raids, ambushes, and used forests and mountains for surprise attacks. The Romans began to lose confidence. Their enemy was not a brute, but a tactician. He studied maps, analyzed supply routes, and blocked roads. His army moved fast, nearly invisible, striking without warning. One unit even infiltrated a Roman camp at night and freed some of the prisoners. The Romans started fortifying their camps, as if defending themselves rather than attacking. But with every battle, it became clear Rome could not tolerate this humiliation for much longer. Reaching the Alps, The path to freedom lay ahead, but not everyone agreed to leave. Crassus and the Germanic troops insisted on marching south. They dreamed not only of freedom but revenge. Spartacus was cautious. Rome was more than a city, it was a system, but he failed to persuade his men. The army split. The Germanic forces were defeated. Spartacus moved south, hoping to reach Sicily and continue the revolt. But the ships never came. Rome mobilized. Crassus was granted full power. He acted ruthlessly. Spartacus found himself trapped between the armies of Crassus and Pompey. Retreat was impossible. He prepared for the final battle. Death was preferable to chains. In spring 71 BC, the Battle of Salaris was fought, the final clash. The rebels fought to the last. Spartacus led his men personally. Wounded but unyielding, he was surrounded. His body was never found. He died a free man. The empire triumphed, but Spartacus became a legend. He showed that even an empire can tremble. His death was the birth of a myth. Though the revolt was crushed, Spartacus' story lived on. He became a symbol of freedom, known in ancient Rome and the Middle Ages. In modern times, he inspired revolutionaries. Marx called him the true hero of antiquity. In the 20th century, films and books immortalized him. He sought no power, only freedom, and died for it. Thanks for watching until the end. See you next time.